All right, we are live. So hello, everybody. We're just like as usual going to give a couple of minutes to get let people arrive and that type of thing before we really get going. So in the meantime, we'll just kind of chat amongst ourselves here and get things prepped up and heated up. I think we're going to have a very robust conversation about a topic that's really in the news right now. So I'm just going to introduce my guests here quickly. So he needs no introduction. He's our FSD Canada campaign manager, FSD Beta, that is, Canada campaign manager, Mother Frunker. So hello, Mother Frunker. Thank you for joining and being a guest on today's show.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And then my usual co-host down there, well, he's at the bottom here for me. No, I can't say that, can I? No, he's on the screen somewhere for you. Tesla Kev, say hello.
Hey guys, how are you? Really happy to be here.
Great.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So are you guys excited about this topic? I know that I'm excited about it. I can't wait to talk about it.
Super excited.
It's my favorite topic.
Oh, I know it's your favorite topic, and you spend a lot of time on Twitter with some really cool. I don't know where you get the ideas from, those memes and tropes or whatever you want to call them that you just kind of keep sending to Elon.
I started doing them again a little bit, but it's really hard. In total, I think I've done about 120 different ones so far, so it gets difficult.
All right, so put that in perspective just for the people watching. So on Twitter, like 150 times you've tweeted Elon about FSD Beta for Canada.
Correct.
And pretty much every one of them has had an individually creative attachment to it, like a meme or something like that.
Correct.
So I've been super impressed. Have you gotten a response from him ever? No?
Not about FSD Beta Canada.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, keep doing what you're doing because I know that we're all waiting for it. All right, I think we should just get started as people join. So let me just share what the first topic is going to be here. And let's see if we can get that on screen. There we go. And I took the title for this particular show from here, just because it's kind of polarizing. So Road and Track, as you can see, had this article, and I guess they found somebody who, had gone around the city of Oakland with FSD, kind of putting it through its paces. And I know that, like, we've seen a lot of stuff on YouTube. I mean, between me, kind of, YouTube guys or other, YouTube pals, I mean, we've logged a lot of hours watching FSD Beta. And I'm just wondering if we've been watching some sugar-coated stuff or whether this is the real deal. So I know you guys watched the video. It was kind of painful to watch. Franklin, I know that you are all over FSD Beta. So why don't you take like the first stab and let us know kind of your thoughts about this article, and we'll take it from there.
So I think a lot of the videos that we've seen to date are selectively chosen because, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it is a good thing, but I've talked to a couple of people who've have it, and I'm not throwing names out, but they're saying it's really good and it's very confident, but it's still a beta. And I think that's the big thing people have to remember, where you see articles like this where they're like, it's potentially bad and potentially dangerous, or laughably bad, potentially dangerous. They're missing out the biggest part, that it's a beta and it's not in wide open release. There's no FSD button that you can just click and the beta is downloading to your car. There's very selective people, and they're actively removing people that are not paying attention, not having their hands on the wheel. So I think that's the huge part that this article's actually missed, is the fact that it is a beta. It's still improving. In terms of the video itself, it just goes to show you that it's doing this kind of thing is extremely hard. No one said it'd be easy. If it was, it'd be done already, right? And it wouldn't be as valuable.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
But you got to imagine someone at Tesla right now has watched that video. They're like, okay, look, we got to improve this, we got to improve that, and that's all it is. They're collecting data and they're going to improve over time. So we can get more in depth as we go, but that's my initial
Yeah. Well, why don't we? Because Kevin before the show was saying that he was holding some stuff back for the show, so I'm sure he's got some stuff to say. So, Kevin, what's your initial reaction?
I completely agree with Mother Frunker. The biggest thing here is not. I hate when guys do this, but I'm going to do it. Road and Track is a traditional publication that relies on traditional OEMs for funding, and I think you need to start there first and foremost, because and I'm not saying it's they're getting money for this, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they actually don't have an appreciation for how actually Tesla got to where they are today, which is we are going to put something out into the wild that is not fully done, fully baked, and we are going to let the people who are going to use it and tell us how to make it better, right? This is, Elon's talked about the pace of innovation. Those who win at the pace of innovation win the game, right? And so this is not a departure at all for what Tesla does, right? And to Mother Frunker's point, it's a beta, and they tell it as a beta, and it's with a very limited number of people. And this is why, because they expect it to be like this, and they expect to take everything they learn and make it better, right? And so to put a sensationalist headline like full self-driving beta is laughable and potentially dangerous, I think they completely missed the point, right? And they've actually they're thinking with and reporting with a traditional OEM lens on their reporting, right? So I hate to say it, but I'm not really sure you can actually put any stock into a piece or an organization that views technological innovation through those type of lenses, right? Because it's just not the reality of the way things are done today with the best and highest performing companies in the world, straight up.
So let me spice up the conversation a little bit then. So we've been fed, I guess, from various Tesla YouTubers who are essentially saying, wow, this thing is amazing. Every time there's a new release, this is amazing. It solved this, it solved that. And then this video comes along, right? And it doesn't appear to be edited. There are a couple parts that I think that have been spliced, but for the most part, I think it's actually showing FSD Beta going through downtown Oakland. So my question is, and to spice it up a little bit, do you think we're getting the real deal, right, from the people who have it and who have been regularly posting to YouTube?
I think we're seeing. No, you're right, and that's definitely like you said, spice it up, and that's a definitely good way to word
spice it up.
Yeah, but I think initially we're seeing. So think about when the beta first dropped, October 3rd, October 2nd, is what it was, somewhere around that time frame. We originally saw like it making the first left or the first right, and we're like, oh my god, this is amazing. We saw it do roundabouts, and we saw bits and pieces. We didn't get to see like one uncut video all in one go. It was all segmented, and every release, the biggest focus was on improvements. The people that were sharing videos never focused on the bad, but they're focusing on all the improvements and changes Tesla made from release to release. So I think their focus was more on, hey, look at its improvements. Their focus was looking on improvements, look at the positives, rather than saying, hey, look at all this stuff that has to improve. I imagine they're still sending reports back saying, hey, fix this, fix that. But they really want to show to the community saying, hey, in the last build, look what it did. Right? If you think now you get a Tesla update, you're not going to be like, I mean, you probably will because you're more honest, but you're not going to go say, hey, this new update, look at all these cool new features. You're going to focus on the new features rather than the things that still have to be adjusted or fixed over time, right? So I think it's more. I mean,
I'm just wondering, and then I'll throw this to Kevin for his thoughts on it. But I'm just wondering if we're being fed, some things that aren't necessarily true about the capabilities. And I'm just being devil's advocate here. I mean, no one can accuse me of being a Tesla hater.
He's shorting Tesla.
Yeah. So let's just have this conversation, right? So over you, Kevin. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
So I think it's all about perspective. I think motherfucker, you nailed it right on the head. Is this thing has been put into sort of the YouTube universe from a perspective that if it's the beta testers, they're looking at it and they're saying, hey, compared to enhanced autopilot, which I had before, this is amazing, right? Because it can now make turns in the city, or it can take streetlights, without me touching it, or whatever. So the perspective is super important here, because I don't think anyone means to mislead. I think it's just they're telling the story from their perspective. Whereas someone like Road and Track comes along and they hear this is a beta of a full self-driving, and the expectation is that they're going to punch in a destination and it's going to take me there and I don't need to do anything, right?
But that's the marketing.
Well,
isn't it?
Well, again,
if we're being honest,
and fair enough. That I'll give you that. Tesla has marketed this thing a certain way, and maybe a little of those chickens have come home to roost for sure. But the much of it is around perspective, and I think what the truth is, if I can say that, is a combination of if you take those YouTube videos from the beta testers, and then you take this assessment for Road and Track and you sort of put them together, I think that's probably more of what the real story is. It's really good at some things and really bad at other things. And there's still a long way to go to get it to the point where you can actually have a fair degree of confidence in calling it full self-driving. So, Tesla has, been called out a number of times for calling its it's automated, I don't know what we're going to call it, its driver assistance
assist,
autopilot, right? And then even enhanced autopilot, right? So and then now calling it full self-driving. So I mean, they are aspirational, obviously, in what they tend to do, and they tend to name things from an aspirational perspective, and I guess that's the culture of the company. But it does hurt them when you come to things like this where motherfucker said it's beta and it's hard, and if it were easy it would have been done a long time ago, right? And so here's something I'll throw it to you guys. Why don't we take the beta self-driving and throw a Cadillac with Super Cruise on a street in Oakland, and then let them go nuts and see what happens, right? I can tell you it's a short story, because Super Cruise can only work on the highway and only on certain highways. But there are stories out there that says Super Cruise is 1,000 times better than Autopilot, right?
I think that would be really interesting to see. Now, I know that GM and Cadillac aren't marketing Super Cruise in the same type of way. But before we go further into that, I mean, one of the things that I try to do with my monthly show here is we don't just want to be talking heads. We want to kind of get to questions as well that people have on this topic, because I really like to have an interactive discussion. So we do have a question that has come in here, kind of a question and a comment. So, I'm not sure if I've not heard of level 6. I mean, level 5 is the top level that I'm aware of, but I think it's a great question. Elon has been saying, I think since about 2019, at the end of this year, that we're going to have these full self-driving features. So I think this viewer has a point in this delaying, right? So do you think expectations are being mismanaged by Elon and by Tesla?
Kev, you want to go first?
Sure. I'll jump on that. You know what? To a certain extent, yes. And Elon's a really, really smart guy. And this just tells you how hard this is, right? Is when a guy as intelligent as Elon, who actually understands what it will take in order to get to level 5, when he says he thinks it'll be ready by at least feature complete by a certain date, and then they don't get there, and now there's talk that maybe they need a more, I've heard some chatter around the next level full self-driving computer, so enhancements to the one that they rolled out. It tells you that these, I think what they essentially called corner cases, or the fringe cases, are actually more along the lines of core cases. Like the fringe is actually the substance of the full self-driving, right? Is look, if you can figure stuff how to do something that you don't see very often, then you can handle driving all the time, sort of thing, right? I think that what's been underestimated is the fringe case and how that applies to just the core backbone of any full self-driving system. And I think Elon himself has probably definitely has underestimated, because he keeps missing the date. And so if the question is how long will it take us to level 5? There could be a huge epiphany technological breakthrough tomorrow, but I wouldn't bank on it. It seems to me to be far more incremental.
Yeah. So
I'd put it, if I were forced to put a number out there, I would say at the low end 5 years, at the high end 7 or 8 maybe.
But that being said, I think that with level 3, right? Maybe 3.5. I think that Elon can deliver on most of his promises. I'm not sure, except for robotaxi. I mean, robotaxi isn't going to happen unless you have high 4 or 5, right? So, but in terms of the consumer, right, who has purchased FSD, I think a lot of those features can be delivered in around the 3.5, if you will, mark with a full self-driving scale. So frankly, I want to turn over to you. You can comment on that, but I also want to kind of put you on the spot a little bit. So first, let me put you on the spot, and then you can say whatever you want.
Sure.
The video. So again, back to this, right?
Yep.
This article and this video. I know that we've talked about the various YouTubers have been focusing on improvements and not necessarily on, whether or not it actually works.
I want to touch on one thing about that, though. There were some YouTubers that have given full uncut videos showing the negatives and positives. And I think a lot of it has to do with location. And I say this, Tesla still heavily requires and relies on map data. It's not map free. There's still some sort of map dependency within their system. And I know people are like, oh, no, that's not good. But that's how their system works. So Oklahoma might have worse mapping currently.
I think it was Oakland.
Oakland, sorry.
Oklahoma would strike me as being easy.
No offense to Oklahomans.
You know what happens when you put someone on the spot? They're not thinking fully, but So I think that might play a small. I'm not saying it's a big factor. It might play a small factor, because I've seen uncut videos where it does make errors. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's not nearly as bad as what we saw in this video. And the fact that it's like a use everywhere type solution, and the fact that it's struggling in one location versus another, what is different? It's obviously the location, right? I'm not saying it's like positive, but that's what it is, right?
Yeah. So this is an interesting comment. I don't know if anyone else has ever used a Roomba or similar, right? And I have heard the stories. I mean, I don't have one myself, but I do know people who have them, and it's kind of like hit and miss for a while until it kind of learns, the layout of your house or that type of thing. So, I just thought it was a very interesting comment. So I wanted to throw it up there for a moment. But I'm not sure if anyone wants to chime in on it.
I want to go back for one sec to the question from prior. I want to believe that the time frame is getting more realistic. And there's a reason why I say this. I actually went through each year and I collected quotes from Elon, and I plan to make a video, and then I kind of scrapped the idea, so I'll share it out here. From 2015 until this year, Elon every year has said something about FSD and the release of it. His timeline has
cross-country trip.
Cross-country trip, yep. Or this is easy. We'll do this in the next 3 to 6 months. But his timeline, if you look from 2015, his timeline was talking about years out. And as he got closer to 2020, he was talking within the next 2 years. And then the last couple of years, he's been like within the next year. And now he's saying within this year, we're going to have this, this, and that. So I'm not saying his timeline is great. I think that's the biggest flaw, being overly optimistic. But you got to imagine that his timeline is getting closer to reality at some point.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this question here about vision versus radar versus LiDAR even. Now we know how Elon feels about LiDAR. I mean, we don't have to mince any words about that. But lately I did hear there was an article not so long ago about radar actually not being relied on at all. And it's being just camera vision. So Kevin, why don't I throw that one to you first, and let's discuss your thoughts on whether we can achieve it with just cameras and vision.
Sure. You're right. Elon has been very forthcoming about his thoughts around LiDAR, and from a fairly simple perspective, right? His perspective is people drive using their eyes, right? And so, if we are going to use data and camera footage, and if we're going to use a lot of this to train our AI, then we should probably try to build an AI that thinks like us, right? Like that drives like us, but doesn't have any of the flaws that we have, like, getting pissed off or distracted,
road rage,
sleepy.
Coal rolling.
So they've taken a fairly simple approach, which is let's make an AI that can drive like a person, but without any of the negative side effects of people, right? And so on one level, it makes a lot of sense for me to say, well, if we can drive with just vision, then so can a computer. So the only question I always have is can you use something like, and I'm kind of with Elon on the whole LiDAR stuff, but the radar thing kind of made me go, right? Like, because radar, one of the things that I've experienced in my own cars is that radar really, really helps, give those extra few seconds when stuff is going on ahead of the car in front of you, right? And my car tends to see that or figure something's going on and tends to do stuff about it before we would as people. So
I've experienced
I'm not sure getting rid of the whole radar piece with vision, it makes a lot of sense.
Especially since
there, right? But
like radar can see past the vehicle in front of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
like the camera can't.
That's right. And so cameras can't. And so that has always been, I think, sort of the argument from the LiDAR people is there are some things you just can't see, and people crash not because they're people, but because they just can't see, right? And so I think the combination of vision and radar has always been a good one, and more than enough from a perspective of AI, and just without the crazy expense and technology shrinkage that has to take place for LiDAR to be actually practical, right? So
yeah. So okay, so we've kind of talked that video to death. Why don't we move on to our next topic? And I just want to remind everybody watching that, again, one of the things that we like to do that's different is, throughout any part of this show, if you've got a question, please post it. We love to have that interaction, and it helps spur the discussion, and we can all learn from each other's collective wisdom, is the way I see it. All right, let's talk about the doubling of full self-driving beta testers. I think it's been a couple of weeks now that Elon tweeted that about the expansion, and I'm not sure that his team was ready, which is sometimes the case with Elon just tweeting a policy change or something like that. I haven't seen a button. I don't know if that button's ever coming in the near term, but I do think it makes sense to expand the number of users who have FSD Beta so that the computers can learn more, right? But then again, the other thing too that I think we need to cover in this discussion is, and I've seen this on Twitter, and I know you have as well, Mother Franker, the people are feeling the inequity at this point. Like in terms of they purchased full self-driving, they're entitled to the beta as much as the next person, is kind of the prevailing wisdom from some of these people who are tweeting about it. So I know how strongly you feel about that, Franklin. So why don't I give you the first crack at it?
I don't know where to start here. Okay, so if you go look at your purchase order and if you bought FSD, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm not here to dispute that. I'm just saying you purchased full self-driving. You never purchased full self-driving beta access. There are a lot of software that I purchase where I don't get beta access to. There's a lot of things that I have that has software where they are doing new features and new improvements, but I never see it until it is feature complete and ready. I know you said we're done with that last video, but could you imagine that last video in the hands of everyone? You're going to tend to have accidents, which is going to give Tesla bad data, which you'll never actually, it'll never see the light of day. If you go on TikTok right now and search up Tesla Autopilot, the number of people who are sitting in their back seat trying to get views is ridiculous. And
yeah, like that is dumb. Like that's really giving us all a bad name, right?
Yeah, and they can't really patrol or police. I mean, there are ways, but we'll get to that after, I'm sure. But they can't really patrol or police who gets access, right? So I think the way they're doing it, people have a really hard time understanding what a beta is, because I've seen some people complain saying, "Oh, there's other features in the car that are beta," but that's like an open beta, open for all. Yeah, Autopilot isn't still a beta. We all have it. But that's an open beta.
Auto steer,
yeah. Open beta. That means it's a beta, but everyone can access it. Where FSD is still a closed beta, where they're selected individuals. On the perspective of 1,000 people they're up to, maybe I'm the only one. I think a lot of it is employees still. Am I the only one who thinks that?
No, right.
Yeah. So
I want the FSD beta as much as everyone else, but
we know that.
Yeah,
we know that, motherfucker.
But I think until it's ready to be safely handed out to myself and others, until Tesla says, "Hey, we have enough data that says it's safe," I don't really expect for them to send it out. So anyway,
so Kevin, I'm going to be just devil's advocate. I paid for FSD beta. Sorry, I paid for FSD, so I'm entitled to the beta. Mm-hmm. Yes or no?
No. You're entitled to get it when the company deems that it's safe to get it, and not before. One of the things that Mother Funker touched upon is safety, and the problem with something like this, a closed beta, it literally has the potential for catastrophe for the company, right? It could set all of us back, a decade if some person, I have a name for it, but if some irresponsible person does something that in the hands of this person is that the beta goes horribly wrong, the potential catastrophe from a litigation, from a legislation perspective, could set all of AI development back decades if the government were to clamp down and prevent this type of testing. Like, I think I look at it, the government has been surprisingly liberal, to be honest with you, in its allowing of using.
I'm surprised they haven't shut it down.
Me too. To be honest with you, I am just shocked that the government is allowing testing on real streets with people. It is shocking to me, and I'm happy about it. But that means there needs to be a lot of care and control around this beta. You got to be really, really careful about who you give this to, and until you're at a point where you feel that the danger of catastrophe is substantially lower, right?
So how are they deciding today? I mean, they're making a decision on an awful lot of people. How are they doing that? And how are they doing that to the exclusion of other safe drivers?
So what I read early on was that there were certain profiles that when you veer from a lane and autopilot corrects you, or if you're on autopilot and it warns you 2 or 3 times, and those are the people that I think they get kicked out, because it shows a pattern of either distracted driving or whatnot. And I think the car keeps enough track of those things that they can determine who's a really safe driver and who's not. I'm not going to say that they know perfectly, but I think that's what they used to try to figure out who they should give it to and who they shouldn't, right? So I pretty much knew that I wasn't going to get it for a long time.
Well,
so
yes.
and you know that, Paul. So.
Yes.
Okay,
well, go ahead.
I think to Kevin's point, so Uber had a full self-driving department, and unfortunately they misused, like they had them on the road and they were operating kind of like Waymo. Theirs actually did have an accident and it killed someone. Since then they sold off all their tech, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, where like theirs was clear cut, like they made a mistake because they didn't put safety measures in place. And basically, if you think all the money that Uber put into that division and that their whole software is just gone, like they had to sell it off. They didn't want to do it anymore because it just wasn't worth their time, right? So you got to think, like, from Tesla's perspective, they want to do it as safe as possible. So we have a question from Lloyd. Shouldn't Tesla be activating the interior camera to monitor drivers using autopilot?
Can I start?
Yeah, go ahead, because I have a very hot take on this.
You've heard me, as you know, on the other podcasts and whatnot, that I think they should. Now, I know that there's people that are very concerned about privacy on this one, and I can see the privacy concern. But if there's a way to assure people that their privacy is secure, I think that the camera monitoring whether or not the person is looking at their laptop or, in the back seat or something stupid, it can, act appropriately. And I'm surprised this hasn't been enabled yet, to be honest with you. That's my 2 cents on it.
Do we know, guys, whether or not they are using that camera for the beta? Are they using it in the beta? Do we know?
They're not.
There you have it. I trust.
Chris, I believe, locked his up, so it doesn't make a difference.
Okay, so he put some tape on it or something.
Yeah. So, but I'm of the mindset that they should use it. The big ones are the ones who are posting, especially the ones who are posting online. Like, those are so easy. It's clear cut. Like, they're posting themselves doing it with their VIN, like instant removal.
Yeah, this was Chris's comment here, right? That Tesla clearly has the ability to ban you from the beta, right? And, are they doing this enough? I wonder, right? I don't know, but I have to imagine that we've seen some stupid stuff, and that's just what we've seen. Like, what stupid stuff is going on that we haven't seen?
I've seen the email they send out, and generally, at least from the ones I've seen, the first one's a warning saying, hey, we've detected you did this. Please don't do it again. I don't know if there's any that have done extreme stuff where it's just like, yeah, you're out. But the one I saw was just a warning.
Does anyone know if there is any kind of NDA whatsoever or acceptable use policy for the beta?
I haven't seen one, but I've read that there is a very explicit non-disclosure. You're not allowed to post to social media. You're not allowed. There's a whole bunch of things you're not allowed to do. But I've not seen the document. So, and I imagine probably what happens is it's probably a disclaimer that you have to agree to when the software gets downloaded. That you have to. That's pretty clearly all the things you can't do.
So there's no privacy in public in the U.S. They can turn those cameras on. It's covered under a First Amendment right. I don't know not enough about the U.S. Constitution, so I'm going to say, all right, that's cool. And in Canada, we really don't have the same expectation of privacy, anyways, right? Do you think that's a fairly accurate statement, or do you think turning that on, people would, complain to the privacy commissioner?
I seem to think that in your car is at least from my own perspective, my car, being in my car is like being in my home. I expect a certain level of privacy. I understand maybe being in a car is considered public in the US. That's the reason why you can't, go parking with your girlfriend, because that's considered, public indecent.
Wait, hold on. You can't? No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
That's
Hope my
for
wife's
another
not watching
podcast.
this. No, sorry.
That's another podcast. So, but no, I think there is a reasonable expectation of privacy in one's vehicle. I don't know how you guys feel, but I really do feel that most people, at least I do, feel like,
Yeah.
that my car is an extension of my home. So
To play devil's advocate,
and
I was going to play devil's advocate here, Paul. If they said, "Hey, turn on that interior camera. We want to watch you, but you can get the beta today," would you do it?
Would I do it? Yeah, I got nothing to hide.
In a heartbeat.
but you know what? It's like, okay, I was just going to say, like, if you've got some really dark tint, right? And your home is your castle, but is your car also your home castle, so to speak? I don't know. It's a really tough question to answer, right? But I tend to agree with you, though.
Paul's asking that question because I have 20% tint on both my cars. So
yeah, exactly, right? So I think that qualifies as a house, Kevin. So maybe you do get some special privacy. It's just I remember, like, I don't know, some old show. There's like, the van's a rockin', don't come knocking. So I don't know if the Tesla's a rockin', don't come knocking. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've kind of flogged this one a little bit to death. So why don't we move on to our next topic? Obviously, we'll continue to take whatever questions you have, not just on FSD Beta. If you got any questions about Tesla whatsoever, we're your people. You can ask us anything. Okay. Let's see here. What was the next thing? Oh, well, we kind of touched on this. So Tesla removed drivers who weren't paying attention. Do we have anything else we want to talk about on this topic, or do you feel like we've covered it?
Okay, so we were talking about them removing out of the beta. How about regular Autopilot? If you have someone that's abusing Autopilot right now, would you guys be comfortable with them just saying goodbye? Would they have to refund them, or did they break terms of service where they don't get a refund for their purchase?
That is a juicy question.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a spicy meatball, that one.
That's a spicy, juicy question. Okay, let me start on that one. I don't know about you, but and maybe it's my bad, but I did not read the entire contractual agreement when I purchased, and I would suspect that most people didn't. Matter of fact, I joked in one of my videos when I picked up our latest Model Y, before saying okay to the Autopilot stuff, that, oh, I should get my lawyers to look at this, right? Realistically speaking, no one is doing that. Everyone's just accepting these terms. They don't really know what they are. I think it would be a real hot potato if Tesla were to come along and say, hey, you're not using Autopilot correctly. You don't have it anymore, and we're not going to give you your money back. I could see that being, something someone would challenge.
Yeah, the problem with this question or this topic is what constitutes a big mistake that is deserving of having sort of Autopilot removed versus maybe a smaller mistake or repeated smaller mistakes. Like, where do you draw the line, right? Like, who is the police on what is deserving of having you removed from Autopilot? That's problematic for me, simply because, look, I'll be honest with you. Tesla Canuck is intimately aware of many of our fun stories around Autopilot, and some of it happened on purpose, some of it is by accident, but they would be considered mistakes. Now, would they be considered mistakes worthy of having this stuff removed? I don't know. It depends where you draw that line. And so I have a real issue with it around where you draw the line. The one thing I do think is, if you're on Autopilot and there's an accident that results because of your misuse of that software, that's a pretty clear-cut case for me. You get it removed. It's gone.
Yeah.
Right? So
Hold that thought for our last topic, because it does segue nicely into that, but we're just not ready yet.
okay.
Yeah. Mother Frunker, do you wanted to chime in there? I'm sensing so.
No, I'm good. I like your answers. I was just kind of curious to see what you guys thought. My mindset is if you're doing extreme stuff repetitively, I'm talking the people who are jumping in the back, the ones who are like, literally like, sleeping or like on their laptop or their phone, like fully 100% not paying attention. Where it's like when you turn it on, there is like I'm not talking like a big long list of terms of service, but there is some stuff that pops up and says, please pay attention, especially if you cause an accident. Like I think those ones should be removed because those are the ones who kind of give it a bad reputation.
I'm wondering if a middle ground in this question is just for Tesla to issue a suspension, right? So, if you get caught doing stuff like that, maybe you get suspended, and then maybe 3 strikes, you're out, and you don't get a refund. I think something like that would be defensible, right? Let's get to this next question here, which is what happens to FSD during heavy rain, heavy snow, or heavy fog. Well, in my experience, what's happened to me in the wintertime more than in one occasion is that the road salt will build up on the cameras, and the Autopilot, let alone FSD, will not operate if it cannot see through those cameras. So I think that's a real challenge. And I did a video and I postulated the question about whether FSD is a 3-season feature because of snow. Now, rain and fog, not as big of an issue, I don't think.
I found that my Autopilot works pretty well in the snow, except when it gets a buildup of snow on the front radar. Once the radar it gets blocked by snow sticking or ice sticking to the front of the car, everything's done. Like it's doing nothing for you, right? And but for the most part, I've been both surprised, happy surprised and unhappily surprised in certain situations. So it's really been situationally dependent for me, I think. But the one thing that kills Autopilot is when the radar gets blocked. Everything's done at that point.
Yeah. This from John here. I can tell by the emoticons there that he's kind of laughing. And I wasn't sure if he meant it as a joke, but there's some merit to this, right? Some type of nano coating on the cameras that can help solve this problem. So, I wanted to put that up there because I think there's merit in some type of that technology that could be useful in the future.
I actually do this. I actually use Rain-X on I started by using Rain-X on my windshield for the front camera, but then I got the idea to put it on the sides and the rear cameras. And what I found is it actually helps the rear camera the most because of all the stuff that gets kicked up on the back camera. A little bit of water, and it tends to get rid of whatever else was sticking. Like if you had road salt or whatever, you go through puddles, and all of a sudden now it's clean, where that would never happen before. So that's it might have been a joke, but it's actually a really good best practice. So,
all right, well, let's get into our final official topic of the day, which is about the Tesla and Autopilot hitting the cop car. I think there were a couple of incidents in Michigan this month, and NHTSA gets dispatched. It kind of feels a little bit like Groundhog Day here for me. So what's going on, guys? Like, what does this keep making the news, or were there 10 other ICE cars that hit cop cars on that day, and just because it was a Tesla, it's news?
I think a lot of it. It's unfortunate. So if you look at the news, your last point, I'm not saying there isn't, like, it obviously happened, but your last point is like the biggest thing for me. How many of these articles will you see just because it has Tesla in the name? And I'm not talking just Tesla. If you take any premium brand car, like if a Ferrari gets in an accident, you're going to hear a news article because it's a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, a McLaren, like whatever it may be. it's a lot of these articles are stemmed from the fact that Tesla will give them clicks because it's like, oh my God, look, this big investigation, right? There's this probe happening this month. And I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm saying that a lot of this stuff has to do with journalism, we'll use that word lightly, trying to generate money.
Yeah, clicks are king.
Yeah.
Clicks are king. And Tesla has proven time and time again that it gets clicks. Take this example. This is a really great example of that. How many people have ran into cop cars, in the state of Michigan, last month? I can guarantee it was more than 2, right? But those aren't stories. If you want to look at it, another topic, which is exact same, even a more extreme version of this, is car fires, right? Hundreds of thousands of cars catch on fire in the United States every year. You get one Tesla catches on fire, and it hits every news outlet like it's an atom bomb, right? Like it is just, it's Tesla sells, man. I mean, for all the reasons that people like Tesla, it's also something that the news outlets have figured out, that if they can work Tesla into the narration, they're going to get a ton of clicks, and clicks mean cash.
So Chris posted something here. So I didn't get to the details of what the profile of the driver was. So was it really like a 22-year-old driver? Yeah, with a suspended license.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So the issue is bigger than Tesla here.
That's why I never really bothered to. That's why I really focused on the click perspective. Is because when you actually start looking at the details, it's like. So, going back to what I was saying, we're jumping back like a topic or two here.
That's okay.
The reason why, like, if you look at a lot of these reports, you get stuff like this where it's a 22-year-old driver with a suspended license, or Autopilot isn't enabled, and Autopilot will take the brunt of the blame. Or my favorite one is Autopilot beat the driver like 10 or 15 seconds beforehand, and the driver chose to do nothing and just continued to sit there. Yeah. So I'm not saying there isn't, like, the system obviously can be improved, right? It can be flawless. There's always room for improvement. But at the end of the day, it's still the user. It's a driving assistant feature where the user still has to pay attention. And I think a lot of the brunt should still go on the human that's not utilizing the feature properly, right?
I think for me, along that line is that, on the same day that this person, even though they had a suspended license and they shouldn't have been driving anyways, and there's a whole other series of problems there. But on that same day, how many accidents did a Tesla prevent, right? Versus this one that happened, right? And we're all Tesla drivers here. I know that we've all experienced the Tesla, making some type of an evasive maneuver or action or braking or whatever it happens to be. And, that stuff, it goes largely untold by the media. So I think that's more strength in this whole thing about it's clicks. It's not news, right?
To take that a step farther, to my knowledge, I don't think a national news outlet has ever printed a story talking about how many accidents a Tesla prevented last year. I know that Tesla prints their own safety report where they talk about it, and they talk about all the number of miles had to be driven, versus a regular car versus a Tesla, autopilot, no autopilot, highway, not highway, that kind of stuff. But to my knowledge, I'm not sure I've ever seen a national news story that has actually taken the opposite side of this equation, which is how many lives and accidents do Teslas prevent every single day, right?
Yes.
Would you click on an article that says Tesla got people to work safely? I mean...
Well, Tesla saves so-and-so's life. I don't know. I'd probably click on that.
It's unfortunate because the only news that really goes viral is negative news, right? Like if you go look at a news site, most of it's like all negative, sensationalized stories. Yeah. There's not a lot of like feel good stories that are like there are from time to time. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of it's like the negative aspects of society in the world because that's what people want. That's what sells. Those are what
So-
people are clicking.
So
I-
there's an
go
old
ahead.
saying that says sex sells. You guys heard that before,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you'll probably recall the most popular Tesla post of the last, I don't know, I want to say 2 years. I think it got more attention, was that gentleman and his girlfriend on Autopilot. Everyone saw that, right?
Yeah.
And so that is
Elon was impressed.
that is proof positive right there that if you combine those two things, Tesla, you will get clicks.
Well, that actually kind of dovetails into Tesla Force's comment here about positive or negative. It's all free advertising. I think within limits, that statement is probably true, right? And to what extent it's going to impact a buying decision. I mean, I'm not a marketer, so I don't know for sure, but I know that the more the brand is out there and the brand awareness increases, leads to more sales. So what do you guys think? Is there such thing as negative Tesla news?
Mm,
Did I stump you?
Well, the thing is that there's an old adage that says there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there are lots of people, especially in the whole days of short selling, that they were looking for stuff to push stock price down, right? And so they could make some money off it. But I do think that there's probably two different categories of bad publicity. It's a sensationalist bad publicity that gets people talking about why Tesla should not be allowed to do certain things, and I don't like that kind of that's obviously stuff that's really, really damaging to the brand. But then there's other stuff where and I'm trying to find an example, but it's perceived as negative, but it gets people talking, right, about Tesla, and it gets people interested in the brand and curious about the brand, even though it might be perceived as negative at the time. It actually is helpful publicity, right? And so not everything negative is bad for Tesla. I think if it gets people talking and having a dialogue about it, I think it probably is beneficial to them as anyone. So.
But I do think Chris makes a good point here, where if you're not part of the Tesla ecosystem like we are, or vested in some way about Tesla, that you may be discouraged by some of the negativity, despite the brand awareness that it's creating, right? Let's chat about this one. This seems to come up on every one of our shows. Wham Bam TeslaCam. I like it. I do think that a lot of them show the capabilities of the Tesla when there's some type of whether it's a road rage, someone tries to nudge you, or these type of things, where the car clearly can take some type of evasive maneuvers to prevent accidents, right? So what do you guys think? Do you think this is a good thing for Tesla, the Wham Bam TeslaCam video?
Total thumbs
Yeah.
up.
Total thumbs up. Two thumbs up.
Video series, yeah, I love that video series. It's I've had a ton of people approach me and say, hey, I saw this video where a guy was about to be rear-ended, and this Tesla took off like it was it had a rocket pack, and it prevented getting rear-ended because it had such crazy acceleration. Is that like true? Right? And I'm like,
yes.
oh, it's kind of true. Like if you had the time and you saw it coming, yeah, you could get past someone, right? So I love that kind of stuff, just because it shows. And one of the things I've learned from it was that in a lot of states in the U.S., when there are disputes around accidents, they actually put out a plea to ask if there were any Tesla drivers in the vicinity, because they want to harvest some of the camera footage. Like it's become sort of something that the police actually do look for to try and solve, questionable accidents or accidents where there's conflict as to who is at fault. They actually put out asking if there were any Tesla drivers. Like, how cool is that, right? Like,
that's pretty cool.
I never would have known that if I didn't watch the series. So I love the series. I really do.
Did you guys have dash cams before your Tesla?
I did not.
I did not. No.
You didn't have one, Paul, in your Audi?
That's a bad 4-letter word on this channel. Yes. I used to drive an Audi.
Whoa,
Okay.
no.
Yeah,
I think
big reveal.
I think today it's like if I were to buy a car that didn't have one, I do it and purposely buy one because I feel like I couldn't drive without a dash cam now. Now that I have it and I utilize mine like all the time for so many things. I have so many videos that I have saved that I don't share anywhere, but I have them saved for different reasons. And I'm at a point where I'm like, everyone should have one installed. Like I feel like it's a necessity.
Yeah, I think if I mean, there's some very important things that we've seen get traction from a legislation perspective in various countries, like the backup cameras, right? Because you don't want to be, running over a little kid or something like that. So that's got a serious kind of implication to it. But also I wouldn't be surprised to see the dash cams become more pervasive built in, like Tesla has done. I think a couple other brands are already doing this. But to go back to the original question, when I got my first Tesla in 2017, it's the first time I ever actually went out and bought a dash cam. This was before TeslaCam came out. So, but prior to that, I never really even thought about it. So,
yeah, same with me. I never had a dash cam, nor did I even really think about it. I knew people who had them, but I was just like, why? Like I never really saw a benefit to it. And so, but now, like you motherfucker, I don't know how you could live without one now. Honestly.
Yeah. I like, because I'm hyper aware of it. And sometimes I just like, I go out and I check my wife's Tesla just to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the flash drive or something, and that the red light is still on, because I'm not sure she would notice. But it's very important that, that this footage is captured now, in my opinion, right? I don't know why it took so long, actually.
Looking at the comment that Chris just put up, I have to tell you guys, I can tell for a fact that when I go through the drive-through with my car, if the person at the drive-through is under 20 years of age, there is literally a 50-50 chance that the person will, when I pull up, they'll say, "I love your car." Right? Like
That's cool.
It's a young person thing. Like honestly,
yeah.
The young people get it, right? And they don't want a gas car, and it's really interesting because my wife and I have these discussions all the time because she's usually with me. I go through the drive-through, and it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl, but if they're under 20, there's a 1 in 2 chance that a person's going to say something about the car. They just, the kids just absolutely love it, and they're the future drivers or the future car purchasers. So I think it bodes well for the brand and for electrification in general. So,
yeah. All right. So we have made it through our official agenda today. So now's the time we kind of turn it over to the audience here to ask questions either related to the topics that we just spent the last hour talking about, or anything at all regarding Tesla. If you're thinking of buying Tesla and you have some questions, whatever you want, throw us some questions. We'll answer them. So, while we wait to see if some questions come in, we'll just kind of keep putting up some of the comments here. You turn into a celebrity when you have a Tesla. And that reminds me of, 2017, when a Model X was still fairly rare in the greater Toronto area. And Kevin, I know that you experienced this too, because we bought our Teslas at the same time. Going to that parking lot in your local supermarket or wherever it happens to be, those falcon wing doors come up, and literally people would come to the car, like just start walking towards the car and asking you questions about it. So, to John's point here, it was definitely true in 2017. Probably still true a little bit today, but those glory days, Kevin, right? Like
I still get people coming out to me and saying, "Can you open your doors, please?" Like they just ask me to open the doors, right? And it's crazy.
Oh, here's a good question. All right, this is a great question. Will you put your car on the Robotaxi network? I'm going to throw this to Motherfunker first because I have a feeling he's going to say yes.
Yes.
There you go.
So I have a couple of cars on order for the sake of Robotaxi. I'm fortunate, and I use the word fortunate, that they are the mythical long-range rear-wheel drive Model Ys, the trim that's up in the air still. So Tesla's just told me to like sit on my orders. So I'm in a rush to take delivery because I want them for the robotaxi network. They're in no rush to give them to me. So it's a pretty mutual understanding right now. So we're in a good place. My FSD the FSD cost has gone up about $4,000 since. So all those cars will go on the robotaxi network if I ever get that trim and whenever the robotaxi network is ready to go. So I'm good with it. For
Kevin?
Not my car,
sorry.
but those. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Yes. Oh, Kevin?
So it's interesting. I was originally going to say, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to do it. But listening to Motherfunker, he kind of gave me an idea. So for my own cars, no, I don't think I would do it. I obviously I reserve the right to change my mind if, depending. But he brings up an interesting point. Would I actually buy a car specifically for a robo-taxi usage? That's a different story, and maybe I might.
Yeah, it's a different question.
And maybe it's the standard range Model 3, which I can get a government rebate for, and yeah, even if full self-driving is more expensive, it still might be worth it, right? So I would say for my own cars, probably not. The idea of someone else driving my car drives me a little nutty, but I guess they wouldn't be driving; they'd be sitting there in your car. But still, it would drive me a little nuts. But if I got a car specifically for the purpose, maybe.
So for me, I think I'll echo that, right? Where I would never ever put my personal car into the taxi network. I would just give me the heebie-jeebies, but that's just me, right? I know for a lot of people that'll work just fine, and there's definitely a monetary benefit to doing that. It's you could get your Tesla paid for. So I think it's a good strategy for some. Me, not so much. Let's move on to the next one. Do you have a Cybertruck pre-order? Yes, I do.
I have one of each trim. Because I know
one of each. You're always one-upping us.
No, there's a reason for it. I know I can't wait. So I did the smart thing. I ordered one of every trim because whatever trim they're going to release first is the one I'm going to take delivery of. Truthfully, I want the tri-motor, but if they're like, okay, the all-wheel drive is the first batch, I'm taking delivery an all-wheel drive, which I already have my early reservation number of that trim.
He's a hedge fund manager. That's what he is. He's a hedge fund manager.
You, Kevin?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I have the dual motor on reservation. Although now I'm listening to Motherfucker and I'm going, geez, why didn't I do that? Because he's right.
I know, it's like
he's right.
He's playing chess.
I could live with any one of those three trim, and depending on which one comes first. And usually, he's right though. Usually, the cheapest one comes last. And that's what I was saying to myself is I'm going to go with the dual motor configuration because I think that one's probably the most likely to come first. But maybe they come out with the tri-motor plaid version because it'll have better spreads. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, it's a clever approach. I wish I would have thought of it. So
let's try to rapid fire these. Given that where we are in the timeline here. So me, yes, I have the all-wheel drive Cybertruck. Okay, let's go into this next one. What would you do or go when you get the Cybertruck? I guess I could go anywhere, right? I don't know. I would just enjoy driving it and not being intimidated by the F-150s on the road.
Talk about being a celebrity driving around that thing. Can you imagine?
Yeah, totally. Franklin?
I want to do one of two things. I want to take it to a track because I just think it'd be funny.
I was thinking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought this through because the track I was looking at, most of the time people will rent the cars that are there. I just think it'd be hilarious to have this big truck that's killing all these like hundreds of thousands of dollars of like sports cars. So that would be that's one of the things I want to do with it. And the other one I was thinking was Sledgehammer Party. Paul, you're invited.
I will hit your Cybertruck with a sledgehammer, I promise. Kevin?
You know what? I think I'd take it to the track as well. I would love to just lay the smack down on a bunch of sports cars and just, immediately have these guys basically driving their cars to the dealership saying, I want to trade this thing in because I just got handed to me by a pickup
by a
truck.
Okay, we've got another question here. Does the Model 3 now have heated steering wheel? From what VIN number? My understanding is yes.
Yeah.
And I know from a Model Y, because I was one of the first Model Ys to be delivered with the new console. And mine is, my Model Y VIN is 123,000 XXX. So I would assume that, I don't know, actually I shouldn't assume. Do you guys know from what VIN number the Model 3 specifically?
I don't have the VIN number, but I know that they were the first ones to get it with the refresh.
Yeah, before the Y even.
Yeah, way before the Y.
So I think the short story is Warbird Pilot. You're probably good if you ordered a Model 3 today in terms of the heated steering wheel and the new console. Okay. What can we do to have Tesla Canada review exchange factoring? I would love to see this happen because it's really out of whack right now. I don't know. I guess you could lobby Elon on Twitter.
I was going to say spam Elon on Twitter. Use the word lobby, but yeah.
It would improve their competitiveness to a factor of 2. Like honestly, they could get so much finer pricing, and honestly, I think it would open up a ton of opportunities for them. I don't know why they don't do it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I thought the coin thing was an attempt to start down that road, but I don't know. They're
padding their margin.
I might have overthought.
This is a leftover. Can I say leftover? It's a remainder of our previous conversation. But I think the aftermath of a weekend usage on Robotaxi Network has to do something with vomit, I would imagine.
Among many other things.
Okay. Will you sleep in your Cybertruck? 100% yes, Franklin?
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. With my dog.
With your dog, minus 20?
Minus 20.
John says Cybertruck's going to be a nightmare for insurance companies to insure. I haven't given too much thought about it, what the insurance is going to cost on it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Saying this, I know exactly what he's saying. Why he's saying this because the idea behind the Cybertruck is that it's going to be casted, right? And so for the most part, it would be a one piece. And so it'll be very, very difficult if that's the case for you to actually repair it if it were into an accident. Almost any accident, I've thought about this a great deal. Almost any accident would mandate it be written off because the thing is a one piece cast. Now, we covered this in the previous podcast. Is that Elon has come out now and said that it might not be one piece, that they're casting the front and the back, and so there's some doubt as to what the Cybertruck will actually be built like, right? So it may not be the one piece that they've always said it's going to be. So until we know that, John might very well be right. But I don't know if we know enough right now.
Well, and just on this topic, I know this has been available in the US for a while, but in Canada, Tesla Insurance is now available in Ontario. And so I went and I got a quote, and they've partnered with a third party called Aviva. And the quote was more than I'm paying today. So there goes Tesla Insurance for me. Okay. Let's see here. Do we have any other questions? All right. So I think at this point, we'll probably call it a show. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We appreciate you spending your time with us, for participating in the conversation. To me, that's what I love to do about it, and why I want to do this is that interaction. So I do thank you for making that possible today through all your questions and comments. Parting words, Mother Funker?
Thank you for having me. I agree with everything you said. The fun part to me is like interacting with everyone in the chat, and it makes a lot of fun, right? Not that you guys are boring, but
nobody wants to be a talking head.
Yeah, exactly.
Kevin, final thought?
Just a total shout out to all the folks who threw up questions to us. I love the interaction. super happy to be here. So a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
All right. So, Motherfrunker, where can we find you on social media?
M Frunker on Twitter and Motherfrunker on YouTube.
All right. And Kevin, you're working on your social media game.
Yeah, I'm riding on the Tesla Canuck train right now. So
yes. And you can find me here, obviously, on YouTube or on Twitter, Tesla Canuck, or on Facebook, Tesla Canuck. So thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody. Oh, thank you so much, Chris. That's very much appreciated. Little donation here from Chris. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great day, everybody, and we will see you again next month for our monthly show. Cheers.
cheers, guys.
Bye.